Less than 12 hours after I discovered the hidden bank transfers, my parents showed up at my front door with a fake apology and a $60,000 check. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted the evidence gone. They only talked about how I was destroying the family. They never mentioned the $1.4 million they had quietly moved into my sister's name over 3 years. But they didn't know. I had already decided exactly what that check was worth. This is a story inspired by hundreds of real betrayal stories blowing up on X this week. It started on a Tuesday night at exactly 11:47 p.m. I was sitting in my car, engine still running, parked right in front of the house, when the banking app buzzed once, short, dry, like an unexpected tap on the shoulder. $87,432 had just left my personal trust account. The account number ended in 4782. The memo line read, "Family support, urgent." I recognized that number instantly. It was my sister's account. The air inside the car suddenly turned ice cold, even though the heater was on full blast. My heart hammered so hard I could feel every beat in my throat. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, staring at that single line on the screen like a knife, straight into my chest. The whole world tilted for a second. The streetlight outside flickered. My breath fogged up the window in layers, and the steady rain drumming on the roof made everything feel surreal, like the universe was mocking me. I opened the full 3-year transaction history. The numbers hit one after another, like punches I never saw coming. January 12th, 3 years ago, $42,000. June 3rd, $115,000. November 19th, right before Christmas, $203,000. February 14th, last year, $168,000. And the biggest one, just 4 months ago, $289,000, labeled House Down Payment Assistance. Over $1.4 million total. Every single transfer had been approved with my digital signature, but I had never logged into that portal on those dates. I had never clicked approve on anything. I printed the first 23 pages. The paper was still warm from the printer. I remember the smell of fresh ink mixing with the cold night air as I stood in my kitchen at 2 a.m., spreading those pages across the table like evidence at a crime scene. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the stapler. I kept whispering to myself, voice hoarse in the silent kitchen, "This can't be real. This can't be happening to me." The next morning at 7:12 a.m., my mom called. Her voice was all sugar. "Chloe, honey, we need to talk about the family money. Your sister is going through such a hard time with the new house and the baby on the way. You know how it is." I didn't answer right away. I just screenshot the largest transfer and sent it to her. 30 seconds later, the phone rang again. The sweetness was gone. "You're blowing this way out of proportion, Chloe. This is for the family. Stop being so selfish. Your sister needs it more right now. You've always been the independent one." I saved that call. I saved every text that came after. I saved the email my dad sent at 9:45 a.m. "We'll discuss this like adults. Don't make this ugly." But the worst part wasn't even discovering the money was gone. It was realizing my own family had been stealing from me for years while pretending everything was normal. But they didn't stop there. 2 days later, my dad showed up at my office, unannounced. My sister was in the passenger seat. They walked in like they owned the place. They brought coffee and a thick folder. Inside was a document titled Family Trust Reallocation Agreement. It said I was voluntarily giving up 70% of my share for family harmony. My name was already typed on the signature line in bold black letters, like they had already decided for me. My dad slid it across the desk, his voice calm but firm. "Sign it, Chloe. Your sister needs the money more right now. You've always been the strong one who doesn't need help." My sister looked at me with those practiced tears welling up in her eyes. Her voice trembled just enough to sound real. "Chloe, you're my big sister. Don't you want me to be happy? I'm pregnant. The house payments are killing us." The room felt smaller. The air got thicker. I didn't sign. I just quietly took photos of every page on my phone, one by one. But the worst part wasn't even the document sitting on my desk. It was what happened that same night when the entire family decided to gang up on me all at once. That same night, they started a family group chat. 23 people jumped in within 4 minutes. My aunt spoke first, voice dripping with fake concern. "Chloe, we all know you've been distant lately, but the money was always meant to help the family. Why are you turning this into a war?" My uncle jumped right in, tone sharper. "You're making your sister cry every night. She thinks you hate her after everything your parents have done for you." My mom's voice cracked on purpose. "I carried you for 9 months. I stayed up with you when you were sick, and now you want to tear this family apart over numbers on a screen. What kind of daughter does that?" My dad added, low and heavy. "We didn't raise you to embarrass the whole family like this." They never mentioned the forged signatures. They never mentioned the $1.4 million that had quietly disappeared. They only talked about my greed, my lack of loyalty, my cold heart. I sat there and listened for 47 straight minutes. The voices overlapped, cut each other off, piled on top of one another until it felt like the whole family was in the room with me, breathing down my neck. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just hit record and saved the entire call in 3 different places. The silence after the call ended was the loudest part. I didn't fight back. I just prepared. I had actually started collecting evidence 2 years earlier, from the very first suspicious transfer that made my gut whisper something was wrong. Every single night when the house was quiet, I sat at my desk with only the glow of the laptop lighting my face. I created a hidden folder buried deep inside my hard drive, under layers of random documents and old photos. I saved everything methodically, coldly, like someone preparing for a war they hoped would never come. I had 4 USB drives hidden in my drawer, each wrapped in a small black pouch so they wouldn't make noise. USB 1, every bank statement with exact timestamps and IP addresses. USB 2, screen recordings of me logging into the trust portal and seeing approvals I never made. USB 3, the notarized letter from the bank's fraud department confirming the signatures didn't match mine. USB 4, every text, every email, every voice recording, every fake sweet message from my mom, every guilt trip from my dad, every tearful plea from my sister. I copied everything onto one master drive labeled simply Evidence Final Package. I drafted an email to my personal lawyer and the IRS Fraud Division, attached the entire folder, and scheduled it to send automatically at 9 a.m. the next morning unless I stopped it. I sat there, staring at the countdown clock to 9 a.m., and wondered if they had any idea that I had prepared everything 2 years ago. But the craziest part was that the very night I scheduled that email, my parents showed up at my front door holding the $60,000 check. The moment I heard the doorbell, I already knew who it was. I walked to the door slowly, the master drive still warm in my pocket. When I opened it, I saw their faces, the same faces that had just spent 2 days gaslighting me in the group chat. They stood under the porch light, smiling like nothing had happened, holding that check like a peace offering. They had no idea that while they were rehearsing their fake apology in the car, I had already pressed schedule send on the one thing that would tear their whole story apart. They stood on the porch like nothing had happened. The porch light cast long shadows across their faces, making their smiles look almost plastic. My mom held the check out first, smiling the same controlling smile she always used. "Sweetheart, this is for you. We want to make things right. Take it. Let's move forward as a family." My dad nodded beside her. "We love you. This has all been one big misunderstanding. Your sister feels terrible." I took the check slowly, my fingers brushing against hers deliberately. I looked at the amount, $60,000, a tiny fraction of what they had taken. I didn't tear it up. I didn't throw it back. I simply folded it once, the paper crinkling under my fingers, and slipped it into my back pocket like it was just another receipt. I spoke for the first time in 3 days, voice completely calm. "You want me to stay silent?" My mom's eyes lit up with desperate hope. "Yes, honey. That's all we ask. Just let it go." I gave the smallest, coldest smile I've ever given. "Okay, I'll stay silent." I closed the door slowly. The click of the lock sounded louder than any scream I could have made. I walked straight to my laptop, sat down in the dark, and clicked send. I sat there in the darkness, listening to the mouse click echo in the silent room, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt relief. But the real revenge wasn't the click itself. It was what happened 48 hours later. 48 hours later, the first certified letter from the IRS arrived at their house. The entire trust fund was under audit for the last 4 years. My sister received a separate notice about the $1.4 million in unexplained deposits. The bank froze every related account immediately. My mom called me 17 times that week. I let every single one ring. On the 18th call, I finally picked up. Her voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her. "Chloe, what did you do? The IRS is at our door. Your sister won't stop crying. We're begging you." I answered slowly and evenly. "I did exactly what you asked me to do. I stayed silent." Then I hung up. The family group chat exploded. Accusations turned into desperate pleas. My aunt messaged me privately. "Chloe, we're all scared. Can we please talk like family?" I left it on read. My sister posted a long emotional status about family betrayal and how some people destroy everything out of jealousy. She never mentioned the money. She only talked about how I had ruined her life. I screenshot it, added it to the folder, and kept moving. 30 days later, the family lake house was listed for sale because the proceeds were frozen. The money my sister had already spent on her new house had to be returned. Her house went into foreclosure. I can still picture the "for sale" sign swinging in the wind in front of the lake house we used to spend every summer at, the same house that was supposed to be half mine. Now it sat there empty, the windows dark, like a tombstone for everything they tried to bury. 60 days later, my sister's lawyer reached out, offering to return $800,000 immediately if I dropped the audit. I told my lawyer to reject it and resend the full evidence package. No negotiation, no mercy. 90 days later, the IRS finished the first phase. They assessed penalties and back taxes that totaled more than the original $1.4 million. My parents had to sell 2 investment properties. My mom had to cancel her annual trip to Europe. My dad, who used to brag about being the provider, now sat in the living room, staring at the wall for hours. I changed the locks on my own house the day the final notice arrived. The sound of the new deadbolt clicking into place felt like the first real breath I had taken in years. I updated my will. I opened a new trust account at a different bank under a different name. I blocked every single family member on every platform. The $60,000 check is still sitting in my desk drawer. I haven't cashed it. It sits there as a reminder, a piece of paper that once represented their attempt to buy my silence. It's not about the money anymore. It never was. It was about the moment they looked me in the eye, offered me hush money, and still pretended they were the victims. They thought they could rewrite the story. They thought they could turn me into the villain while they kept everything. They were wrong. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of anyone. I simply sent the file, and that was enough to bring the whole thing crashing down. If you've ever been erased by your own family over money, you already know exactly how this feels. That cold, heavy weight in your chest when the people who are supposed to love you choose dollars over blood. Comment the word "silent" if you've ever felt this kind of betrayal from the people who were supposed to protect you. Turn on notifications. The silence ends here. Subscribe for more dark family betrayal stories. See you in the next story.